From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
All of the Palestinian segments and powers are alike. Nowadays, we have the strongest weapon against the occupation. It is our national unity.
In the occupied territories, rival Palestinian political factions, Fatah and Hamas, have reached an agreement to end their nearly 5-year rift. We get reaction from Sari Makdisi. He's the author of Palestine Inside Out, an everyday occupation. Then he's been called the biggest whistleblower of the Bush administration.
A lot of more Americans have been illegally wiretapped than we know. We don't know what has been done with that information, and just as we're slowly learning about how many people have been tortured in our name, we are also slowly learning perhaps more about the extent of the wiretapping.
Thomas Tamm helped expose the Bush administration's warrantless eavesdropping program. Now, after 5 years, the Justice Department has quietly dropped its investigation of him. In a national broadcast exclusive, we speak with Tamm about his ordeal. Then President Obama is expected to announce a major shuffling of his national security team today. CIA Director Leon Panetta will move to the Pentagon to replace the retiring Robert Gates, and General David Petraeus will become the new head of the CIA. We'll get reaction from former senior CIA analyst Ray McGovern. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. At least 178 people are dead after fierce storms and tornadoes barreled across the southern United States. 128 people were killed in Alabama alone. Alabama's Browns Ferry nuclear power plant was forced to use backup generators after its main power source was knocked out. The city of Tuscaloosa was among the hardest hit, with at least 15 people killed. Tuscaloosa Mayor Walter Maddox said the death toll could rise.
As of 7:30 p.m., we have 15 confirmed fatalities, and I'm afraid that number is going to be ever increasing. We have well over 100 injuries throughout the city of Tuscaloosa. We have hundreds of homes and businesses destroyed and hundreds more damaged.
In addition to the Alabama toll, 11 people were killed in Mississippi, another 11 in Georgia, while one person died each in Tennessee and Virginia. A total of 139 tornadoes were recorded, putting April on track to break the all-time record for tornadoes in 1 month. In Libya, a NATO airstrike has killed 12 rebels and wounded 5 more in Misrata. The attack marks the second time this month NATO planes have mistakenly bombed the Libyan opposition. The U.S., meanwhile, has ordered the expenditure of some $25 million in surplus government goods to support the rebel forces. On Wednesday, the U.S. ambassador to Libya, Gene Kretz, said the rebels are deserving of U.S. backing.
They're working through the normal bugs that would be part of any, stand-up transitional government that has not had, in a country where you have not had politics for 40 years. So I think in terms of what he has found so far, he would confirm or affirm that our determination that they were a serious group worthy of support has been borne out.
Ambassador Kretz also said he estimates 10,000 to 30,000 people have been killed in the Libyan conflict. More than 1,000 are believed to have died in Misrata alone. In the occupied territories, the rival Palestinian political factions Fatah and Hamas have reached an agreement to end their nearly 5-year rift. The agreement reportedly covers several major points of contention, including the formation of a transitional government, security arrangements, release of all prisoners with a non-criminal background, and the restructuring of the Palestine Liberation Organization to allow Hamas's membership. The two sides have been locked in a bitter conflict since Fatah and the Bush administration tried to overthrow Gaza's Hamas-led government in 2006 after Hamas won Palestinian national elections. Israel says it'll continue to reject any peace negotiations with a government that includes Hamas. The Obama administration signaled its opposition to the deal by reiterating the long-standing U.S. designation of Hamas as a terrorist organization. We'll have more on this story after headlines. The Syrian government's continuing a crackdown on anti-government demonstrators with a military operation in the city of Daraa. On Wednesday, state forces reportedly took control of a local hospital and fired at anyone who approached. A human rights group in Daraa claims to have counted at least 35 deaths in the city and says electricity, water and telecommunications have been cut off. A second rights group has collected the names of at least 453 civilians killed in Syria's last 6 weeks of protests. 200 members of the nation's ruling Ba'ath Party resigned Wednesday in protest of the government assault. The developments come as an effort to condemn the Syrian crackdown has failed at the United Nations. A Security Council resolution to call for an international probe was scrapped after Russia, China, Lebanon voiced opposition. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Susan Rice, said the Obama administration continues to consider a range of options to pressure Syria.
My government calls on President Assad to change course now and heed the calls of his own people. We also call upon the international community to respond to this brutal crackdown and to hold accountable those who are perpetrating these gross human rights violations. The United States has expressed its position to the Syrian government, and we're considering a range of options, including targeted sanctions, to respond to the outrageous and ongoing use of violence against peaceful protesters.
Syria's UN ambassador Bashar Jafri, meanwhile, said there's no need for an international probe because his government's conducting its own investigation.
There is no need, according to us, there is no need for any UN investigation commission with this regard, because our national body has already started looking into the matter in its wide spectrum, and then later on we will see the outcomes of this investigation. Thank you.
In Yemen, 12 people were reportedly killed, nearly 200 wounded, when Yemeni forces opened fire on an anti-government demonstration in the capital of Sana'a. Snipers were seen on rooftops aiming at a crowd of roughly 100,000 protesters as they filled a city square and surrounded the state television building.
We were marching peacefully, and they fired at us with bullets. We were peaceful. 5 or 6 of our friends fell beside me, and we tried to pull them while they fired and threw tear gas at us.
In Bahrain, 4 protesters have been sentenced to death and 3 to life in prison for their alleged roles in the killing of 2 police officers during rallies last month. All 7 were tried in secret. The verdicts are the first to come out of the Bahrain uprising since it began in February. The White House has released a more extensive record of President Obama's birth certificate in response to long-standing right-wing claims he was not born in the United States. Obama said the issue has become a distraction.
I know that there's going to be a segment of people for which, no matter what we put out, this issue will not be put to rest. But I'm speaking to the vast majority of the American people, as well as to the press. We do not have time for this kind of silliness. We got better stuff to do. I've got better stuff to do. We got big problems to solve.
One of the most prominent so-called birthers, real estate tycoon and prospective Republican presidential hopeful Donald Trump, took credit for the release of the document.
Today, I'm very proud of myself because I've accomplished something that nobody else has been able to accomplish. He should have done it a long time ago. Why he didn't do it when the Clintons asked for it, why he didn't do it when everybody else was asking for it, I don't know.
But Trump is still not satisfied. Now he wants President Obama to release his college records because he said, how did he get into Columbia and then into Harvard Law School? After addressing the birther claims, President Obama flew to New York last night to attend 3 back-to-back fundraisers. The first event was held at the home of former New Jersey Governor and Goldman Sachs Chair Jon Corzine. The New York Times described the $35,800 a plate event as Obama's first in a kiss-and-make-up effort with Wall Street donors. The Obama campaign's hoping to raise $1 billion for the 2012 election. Lawmakers in Indiana and Florida have approved measures imposing sweeping curbs on abortion. The Indiana measure would ban abortions after 20 weeks and strip all funding to the local chapter of Planned Parenthood. The Florida bill would bar federal health reform grants from paying for abortions and force all women to pay for ultrasounds before they can end their pregnancy. Tibetan exiles have elected an international law expert as their new prime minister. Aung San Suu Kyi will assume the political duties of the 75-year-old Dalai Lama, who's stepping down. Suu Kyi, who's never lived in or visited Tibet, said he'll continue the Dalai Lama's policy of seeking meaningful autonomy for Tibet under Chinese rule.
My standing for the election will send a message to Beijing that their calculation, at least some of them are calculating that with the passing away of the elder generation, the Tibetan movement will fizzle out and Tibetan government will disappear. That will not happen. The hard work of the elder generation and the contribution they have made will always be remembered and celebrated by younger generation, and we will do our best to continue our struggle as long as it takes till freedom is restored in Tibet and dignity and identity of Tibetan people are respected.
And the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled businesses facing arbitration can force customers or employees to pursue their cases individually rather than joining in a class action. The 5-4 decision reverses a California state Supreme Court ruling that allowed customers to form a class with others even if they'd signed arbitration agreements barring class actions. The ruling could jeopardize a pending effort by at least 500,000 female workers to bring a class action sexual discrimination case against the retail giant Walmart. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and